I've always enjoyed the Rune Factory games, and it's not often that the series gets a full 3D entry. As a matter of fact, out of all of the games in the Rune Factory series, Rune Factory 5 is only the third entry to be fully 3D, with the other two being Rune Factory Frontier on the Nintendo Wii, and Rune Factory Tides of Destiny, or Rune Factory Oceans in Japan and PAL regions for the Nintendo Wii and PlayStation 3. So when I heard that Rune Factory 5 was going to be given the same treatment, and given that Tides of Destiny sets the bar for the 3D games, and Rune Factory 4 was a pretty strong entry, I was confident that I would enjoy the farming, fighting and relationship building that I would come to expect from a game from the series. Rune Factory 5, much like the other Rune Factory games, shares the farming elements present in the Harvest Moon / Story of Seasons games, but with a more swords and sorcery element, as the games are all set in a fantasy world. The games originally had the subtitle A Fantasy Harvest Moon until Natsume and Marvelous parted ways, which explains the existence of Story of Seasons, but I've covered that enough in past videos already. Rune Factory 5 takes place in the Kingdom of Norad. You can play as a male or female character, and the game has you waking up in a forest without your memories as a young beast girl is about to be attacked by a monster. After fending off the monsters and learning the basics of battle, you and the young beast girl return to the nearby town of Rigbath where you collapse. After waking up and finding out that you're suffering from amnesia, you're taken to the town's seed outpost where you're tested by the Soul Sphere to determine whether you're dangerous or not. After causing the sphere to shine brightly and being supported by Seed Field Captain Livia that you aren't dangerous, you're welcome to the town, and in exchange for staying at the Seed Outpost, you become a Ranger for Seed, who are an organisation who protect the peace in the land. You'll be then taught the basics of farming and introduce yourself to the townsfolk. Like other games in the Rune Factory series, you'll be finding yourself fighting and taming monsters, growing crops, and befriending the townsfolk, with the chance of meeting your special someone and starting a relationship with them, ultimately getting married and having a child. But how well does this entry in the Rune Factory series stack up against the rest? Is it any good? Find out in The Good. One of the strong points of the Rune Factory series has always been its characters. The townsfolk I always found are unique, and everyone has their own personality, quirks and traits, which makes them more endearing. Following Rune Factory 4's example, until you start dating one of the 12 love interests, 6 bachelors and 6 bachelorettes, you'll encounter events featuring multiple characters from town. I found this not only builds on the person that you're trying to woo, but you can also see how the character interacts and behaves around others in situations involving a bunch of them. For the first time in the series, and introduced in a patch prior to the Western release, with the feature being available from day one in the West, the game does allow same-sex relationships and marriages, so you're now spoiled for choice on who to pick. If you're stuck on who to choose, you can always go the polyamorous option and just date everyone until you pick one. But the game does discourage this by making it more difficult for your confessions to be accepted the more partners you have. Each love interest has their own unique events, much like in Rune Factory 4, where they need to overcome a challenge in order for your relationship to continue, and I really liked how this fleshes out the characters even more. You have dating events where your partner will choose the date spot, which ultimately leads to their relationship challenge, as well as special dates where you pick a place to take your partner to and interact with them. The relationship system aside, characters have different dialogue that plays as you become better friends with them, and you can even ask characters to join you on your adventures beating up monsters. Remember that child you saved at the start? Now you too can train her while breaking child labour laws to destroy or help you destroy bosses and enemies in the game. Townspeople have a joint attack that they can perform with you to deal extra damage, and they can certainly make fighting in the game a lot easier. Characters do have their own schedules, and learning them as well as what they like and when their birthdays are will certainly go a long way. If you have saved data from Rune Factory 4 Special, then Margaret and Doug from Rune Factory 4 will make cameo appearances as guests visiting Rigbath, which is nice, though you can only be friends with them and they don't have their own events or participate in the game's festivals. If you tame monsters, some of the larger ones will allow you and a friend to ride them. Taming monsters mostly remains the same, with you feeding monsters until they like you. Some of the bosses can be tamed, though they do have very specific requirements on what needs to be fed to them. Monsters can be temporarily tamed using your character's capture ring. Once charged, you can capture a wanted monster to get a reward, or have a monster temporarily help you fight for the day. The capture ring can also be used to get items from monsters too, which is nice, and can also be used to get items from bosses, though you do need to find a window of opportunity for it to be effective on them. The game's cast and interactions were something I was looking forward to in the game, and Rune Factory 5 did not disappoint. The game really kept me occupied, and for context, there are days where I only spend about 10 to 15 minutes on an in-game day in Story of Seasons, Harvest Moon and even other Rune Factory games. But Rune Factory 5 has consistently gotten me to spend anywhere from 45 to 80 minutes per in-game day, whether it's on farming, interacting with the townsfolk, fighting, taming or capturing monsters, or one of the many other activities you can do during the day. You can level up your skills by simply doing these things, and blacksmithing, crafting, cooking and chemistry return, so you can make and customise your own gear and items for you and your friends to survive in dungeons. You can also cook food to give to the townsfolk as gifts, making them like you more too. Some of them will even give you a present back. However, your chances of success depends on how high your skills are, and much like in Rune Factory 4, you can cheese the system to raise your skill levels by intentionally failing high level recipes. You can eat recipe bread in the game to learn how to make or cook new items depending on the skill level, or you can just figure it out yourself, which will take more RP or rune points, the equivalent of stamina in the game. I will admit, the game did address one of the grievances I had with Rune Factory 4, and that was making the farming side of things take a back seat. I found myself doing a lot more farming, and the game even encourages this by having you randomly increase different unrelated skills when you harvest things too. Crops aren't restricted to seasons, so you can grow them any time, it's just that they have a preferred season. As you journey through the game, you can unlock farm dragons to give you more space to plant crops and keep your monsters, and if your monsters like you enough, they can even help out with the farm work, reducing your load on things. Just make sure you have enough fodder to feed them, as working monsters will require more fodder than ones staying in the barn. There is a lot to do in the game, and for the game to take up so much of my time, I have to say it feels great constantly having something to do, and raising your skills by farming, fighting and socialising is key to becoming an unstoppable force alongside your friends. The game also draws a lot of its features from Rune Factory 4. The order system makes a return, with you earning seed points by completing missions and helping people in town. These points can be used to unlock festivals, increase your storage space, and unrelated to the order system, upgrade buildings and facilities in Rigbath. Upgraded facilities have expanded stock or new services available, and Rune Factory 5 also introduces tandem activities that you can do once a day. Activities like fishing, cooking and smithing can be performed with a random townsperson that you're friends with, which may result in rarer fish being caught, multiple dishes being cooked, or random effects being added to your weapons. After you've completed the main story, a bunch of new orders are available to you, such as seeing how strong the enemies are, making them stronger, unlock the post-game dungeon, using the soundtrack from previous games, or even changing your character's gender, though the game will still treat you as whatever gender you picked at the start, so I'm not sure if this was an oversight or if it was intentional. Festivals I found were quite interactive, with different festivals having different activities to perform outside of the Harvest Festival, in which you get a crop judged. You can also cheese some of the festivals just to make the townsfolk like you more, such as with Valentine's and White Day, where characters will give you cookies as a gift. You can just simply give them straight back and they would be none the wiser, which really goes a long way. I do find little things like that pretty funny. For example, in the middle of Lucy's romance event, when she was nowhere to be found and some drama had come up between the two of us, I took the time to complete a random event that she had put up on the board asking for me to ship a potato. This really breaks the immersion and the seriousness of the event, but I let it slide because it was funny. However, there are things that I won't let slide about this game, so let's take a look at them in the bad. The game does suffer from some performance issues. I have noticed frame dips and delays quite often while playing through the game, and normally while I don't take issues with them if it happens the odd time, I found that every time you enter or leave a building the frame rate tanks, and one of the levels in the post-game dungeon will always run choppy for no apparent reason. I've tested this one numerous times alone and with allies, and with the Switch in handheld mode and docked, but no matter what I pick, the frame rate always seems to tank on this one flaw. Some boss attacks will also cause the frame rate to run poorly, and I've even had instances where I've been stuck in a loading screen, so the only choice I've had is to restart the game. Thankfully, it does have an autosave feature, because having to repeat a day I'd already spent 40 plus minutes on is something I don't look forward to doing. This wasn't an issue with previous games, and even the other 3D games handled this a lot better. I did find that disabling dynamic resolution on the options helped to a degree, but this did result in additional loading at the start of the day and did not solve the dungeon frame drop and boss attack issue. In terms of story, I felt that Rune Factory 5 was a bit on the weaker side. The game's story is comprised of 2 acts, and I'm not saying that the story overall was bad, I did enjoy it, but against the likes of Rune Factory 4 and Tides of Destiny, it just didn't leave as much of an impact as I was hoping. The game does tie into the other entries in the series, with events referencing that it takes place long after Rune Factory 4, with parts of the story and background and dialogue from Margaret and Doug to back it up. An issue shared with Tides of Destiny are the request varieties. I've generally found a lot of the random requests in Rune Factory 5 has either involved me giving cold medicine, juice or squid to townsfolk without any context, and the reward only being a healing potion that I'll never use. Having dialogue such as characters having a cold when you give them the medicine or why they want juice or squid in the first place would definitely be beneficial. At least the random requests where you have to ship a random item does provide some dialogue, so it's like the developers have only decided to go halfway through and just give up. The game even has a detective agency, which I felt was missed potential, where maybe you could help townsfolk locate lost items, or maybe I'm being too ambitious here, resolve misunderstandings between townsfolk to raise friendship levels. I miss the farm dungeons from Rune Factory 4. Remember how in that game you could just grow your own dungeons and fight monsters in a randomly generated dungeon? Well, Rune Factory 5 doesn't really have anything like that, and even the post-game dungeon was a bit of a disappointment even when compared to Rune Factory 4, which with the amount of floors available, blew Rune Factory 5's post-game dungeon out of the water. A lot of opportunities here that could have been. The game's story is also really short, as I was able to beat the main story before winter of the first year, and that was with me intentionally taking my time. While I do appreciate the events fleshing out the townsfolk and how they interact with you and one another, I found that events can really drag on, and sometimes when you really need to get something from one of the shops in the game, you can't go in there without triggering an event. Some events may last for several days, especially the ones for your love interests. And there's some instances where an event would only happen at night, or in one character's case it had me meeting up with her multiple times at night. Only one event at a time can happen, and confessions are unable to happen while an event is going on. Some events only trigger after you've reached a certain point in the story, and other events will disable your ability to warp until they're completed. Out of all the issues I've had with the game though, this would probably be the most minor of them. But I think I've complained enough here, so let's wrap things up with the opinion. I really enjoyed Rune Factory 5. It's a strong entry with a great cast of characters, gameplay and activities to keep me occupied, and I've spent well over 200 hours on it. It is let down by performance issues, a weaker story and a minor grievance with events, but it is a good game in its own right. However, I don't think it's quite enough to topple Tides of Destiny personally. If farming simulators like Harvest Moon, Story of Seasons and Stardew Valley are your thing, or if you've played the other Rune Factory games, then this game is one I would definitely recommend looking into. Rune Factory in the fantasy setting is probably now my preferred setting for these sorts of games, and I do hope to enjoy more of them in the future. So with that, it's time for my rating. I would give Rune Factory 5 a pink turnip out of 10. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review. If you enjoyed today's review, feel free to check out some of our other videos and subscribe for more. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram and our Facebook page. Once again, thank you for watching.